California. The name evokes images. Rolling hills of golden grass and chaparral. The majestic Sierra Madre Mountains cut by rivers forming gorgeous and fertile valleys. The Pacific Ocean pounding beaches along its coast. The name, however, echoes a Spanish past, rooted in the Franciscan mission system of the late 18th century. Between 1769 and 1804, Franciscan Friars founded 19 of the 21 missions, which gave the Spanish government a strong foothold in the region they called Alta, or Upper California. The government of Mexico City rushed to claim and colonize this area because they feared the incursion of Russian commercial interests from the north and British invasion from the east. So officials turned to men like Junipero Serra to quickly build up an infrastructure and anchor a Spanish presence in California. Serra founded Mission San Diego de Alcala on July 16, 1769, the first of 9 dedicated under his leadership. Short and thin, sickly and bookish, the friar was an unlikely candidate to spearhead colonial expansion, but he possessed a spiritual vision that drove him onward. That vision mixed Franciscan missionary zeal with Spanish culture. The missionary spirit of the order mixed 2 other elements, evangelization and fear of the end times. The second element added impetus to the first. The Franciscan order soon developed a tradition that saw the imminence of the end times, placing 2 figures in the center, St. Francis himself and Mary, the mother of Jesus. Shortly after the death of Francis, the popular way of interpreting the book of Revelations shifted from the symbolic to the literal. The successors of the friar saint placed him and the mother of Jesus in that context. With his stigmata, Francis became the angel of Revelation chapter 7, verse 2. I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, having the seal of God. He shouted loudly to the other 4 angels who had permission to injure the earth and the sea, "Don't injure the earth, the sea, or the trees until we have placed the seal upon the foreheads of God's servants." After the angel's command, the scene shifted to the vast multitude worshiping God in the court of heaven. Mary was the heavenly mother of the Messiah in Revelation chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and verse 5. A great sign was seen in the sky, a woman having clothed herself in the sun and the moon beneath her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And having a child in her womb, she cried out, having birth pains and being tormented to give birth. She gave birth to a son who was about to shepherd every nation with an iron rod. Since the Franciscans professed a love for the mother of Jesus with the title the Immaculate Conception, they fused the image of the Heavenly Mother with the title. For many in the Franciscan order, Francis and Mary were signs of Christ's imminent return. Both images stoked their evangelical fervor to convert as many non-Christians as possible before the end of the world came. The friars carried a vision of the end times as a choice between salvation and sin, heaven and hell. They modified Jean Cousin's painting of the final judgment to make that decision stark. Taking the medieval vision of the 3-tiered universe of heaven, earth, and hell, they almost evacuated the population of the earth, raising them up to the glory of the saved along with the risen Christ, or casting them down into the pit of the underworld along with Satan and his devils. Notice the 2 figures on the left. Mary who looked up to her glorious Son, and the figure of death who pointed towards the suffering of the damned. These two figures were not present in Cousin's original painting. The friars reflected their dualistic vision of the saved versus the damned, even in the design of the mission. Besides the elongated compound at La Purísima Concepcion outside of Lompoc, California, the Franciscans built a typical mission in the shape of a square, with living quarters facing inward towards a garden area. While most Spanish homes were built in this Mediterranean style, the design served another function. It housed the newly baptized Christians, or neophytes, in what the friars believed was a safe spiritual environment against the depraved influences of the non-believing native population, or what they referred to as pagans. The saved lived inside while the damned dwelt outside. Even within the compound, the friars segregated neophytes by gender. Unfortunately, under this arrangement, the native population suffered from the abuse of some friars, Spanish soldiers stationed at the missions, and visiting foreign immigrants. The neophytes who lived in close quarters also endured deadly disease which quickly spread and ultimately decimated their numbers. While many converts did live in nearby villages, the focus remained on the mission and the activities within its walls. The friars took a paternalistic view towards the neophytes. They viewed these new Christians as children, both in faith and in culture, while the Franciscans acted as spiritual fathers. In their quest to Christianize inhabitants of Alta California, the friars taught the natives new skills to support the mission and its way of life. The neophytes learned farming, grazing, leatherworking, weaving, and many other crafts. They also learned proper liturgical behavior, including choral music, at which they excelled. Finally, the friars drilled the neophytes daily on the catechism and led them in the rhythm of prayers throughout the day. The Franciscans intended not only to change the religious worldview of the native population, they had the task of preparing these people to take their place as citizens and subjects under the Spanish crown. What did citizenship mean in Spanish culture? The friars looked to the earthly mother of Jesus as the model subject. She obeyed the call of God when the angel Gabriel announced the good news of Christ's birth. She would remain obedient throughout her life, even in the death of her son. On October 1st, 1791, Friar Lasuen founded the Soledad Mission as an implicit recognition of that obedience. The statue over the altar of the rebuilt mission church depicts Holy Mary, Our Lady of Sorrows in Solitude. The late medieval dress of mourning, the hands in the prayer position, spoke to the virtues of duty and obedience over personal feelings of sorrow and loss. These two virtues even trumped suffering, as the Passion of Christ revealed. In the image of Jesus and his mother, the good citizen fulfilled his duty to God and the Spanish crown. He obeyed the Holy Mother Church and the edicts of the government. The Franciscans never realized their vision for the native population of Alta California. The tight confines of mission life limited the will of the neophytes to live free. The contagious diseases foreigners brought to the area spread quickly throughout the mission, killing many of the new Catholics. Death rates outstripped birth rates for much of the 7 decades the mission system functioned in California. In the end, the shady dealings between the Spanish immigrants and the new Mexican government stripped away land set aside for the native populations, leaving the surviving people poor, condemning them to a life of servitude as second-class citizens. With the defeat of Mexican forces in 1848, the United States took possession of Alta California, and new immigrants flowed into the area, changing the culture from Hispanic Catholic to Protestant American. During the latter part of the 19th century, most of the missions fell into ruin, but the early 20th century brought revival. Catholic and non-Catholic alike saw the mission system as an integral part of the area's history and culture. While the Friars did not realize their vision for the neophytes, they left a legacy that helps to form and inform Californians of their place in the world.